On Sky News Australia, this is the Rita Panahi Show Overtime.
Welcome to the Rita Panahi Show Overtime. Today we'll speak to the woman behind the fall of Minneapolis, a documentary about what really happened in the George Floyd case and the aftermath of the BLM riots. We'll have incorrigible Texan Alex Stein tell us about the release of the January 6 tapes and his proposal to this MFR is not real lady. Yes, that really did happen. And Kinsey Schofield will bring us the latest royal and celebrity news, including revelations about a Hollywood A-lister being a terrible dad, allegedly. Of course, there will be plenty of lefties losing it, but first, let's get started with the biggest news stories around the world with Kosha Gator. Kosha, let's start with this huge development in Argentina, which has just elected a president that is conservative, is a libertarian. He is vehemently anti-Marxist, anti-woke. Javier Milei has been called far-right. He's been called an extremist, and his rise to power has triggered all the usual lefties who've, they haven't been this disturbed since Giorgia Meloni was elected as Italy's leader. I'll bring you some of that meltdown later, but first let's hear from the president-elect.
Estamos viviendo la locura de la corrección política estúpida, donde básicamente, no, si ustedes no recitan el socialismo cool, si ustedes no son woke, entonces son violentos, son un peligro para la democracia. Vamos, muchachos.
Seguro.
Sigamos con estas estupideces y en lugar de ser 140, vamos a hacer la villa miseria más grande del mundo.
Kosha, Argentina has elected Javier Milei after the left has just wreaked havoc in that country. It's once prosperous, now the economy is in ruins, inflation running at between 120 and 150% annually. This election has surprised many, but when you look at what's happening in Argentina, you can see why they want a dramatic change.
100%. I think Argentina is one of the biggest cautionary tales of our time of how rapidly that decline happened from prosperity to those numbers that you cite right now. He's an unconventional candidate in many ways. He's got the hair, he's a TV host, he says kind of things that are beyond, what
he likes dress-ups.
He does like dress-ups.
Extraordinary footage of him.
He's a bit eccentric, but the thing is, conventional candidates, look where it's gotten them.
Yeah.
And that's what 150% inflation looks like. They've got a little bit of an immigration problem. They've got the culture wars as well, and people just want something different. So here you are, and it was decisive. It was 55-44. It was a decisive blowout.
Absolutely. Now, his interviews are going viral across the web, particularly X. Let's have a look at one of these clips where he shares his thoughts on the left.
Al zurdo de mierda no le podés dar ni un milímetro.
Pero ¿me podés definir zurdo de mierda? Que no
Todos los que, digamos, los colectivistas, los que ponen, digamos, o sea, esa idea... A ver,
¿por qué le pones de mierda, digamos?
Porque son una mierda. O sea,
vos mezclás...
si, no, pero es que si pensás distinto te van a aniquilar. Ese es el punto. Es decir, vos al zurdo no le podés dar un milímetro, porque le das un milímetro y lo toma para destrozarte. Es decir, vos no podés negociar con el zurdo. No se negocia. No se negocia con esa mierda, no se negocia porque te van a llevar.
Kosha, he said in that interview, if you give the left an inch, they will use it to destroy. You can't negotiate with leftards. That's a direct quote. He also said, since they can't beat us with real arguments, they use the repressive apparatus of the state to destroy us. As I said, the country is an almighty mess. He's been dubbed the Argentinian Trump. Can he turn the ship around? People are predicting chaos, economic collapse, all the things we heard when Trump was elected in 2016. Care to make a prediction?
He definitely has his work cut out for him. And I think when things have gone so far off the deep end, it's going to take drastic measures. And let's see, what he does. I think it's going to be a real test. Will he be allowed to govern, or will the civil service and other people kind of obstruct what his agenda is? But he is putting the kinds of dramatic things out there, at least rhetorically, such as shutting down entire ministries, shutting down entire departments of government. And that is the kind of thing it's going to take to turn the ship around. But we'll see if he has the steely spine that it's going to require.
Well, you mentioned the bureaucracy there, and if they're going to frustrate him like they did Trump. Let's have a look at what he plans for that fat bureaucracy in Argentina. This video is instructive.
Afuera.
Ministerio de Cultura, afuera. Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible, afuera. Ministerio de las Mujeres y Género y Diversidad, afuera.
He wasn't done there. There were a few other departments that were spiked also. Predictably, the post-election meltdown has been enormous. Let's have a look at how these Argentinian socialists are coping with the triumph of Javier Milei.
Político, social y económico de la Argentina.
And Kosha, the Washington Post's unhinged coverage of Argentinian politics was a thing to behold. But let's have a look at The Guardian and how they've reported on this politician. Wow, they are not coping well. The far right, Milei, seizes a narrow victory. Far right again there. He's apparently angering the Falklands veterans. They even are quoting Taylor Swift fans. I don't know what that has to do with anything. And fraud claims echo Trump ahead of... I mean, the Guardian is not going to cope with this, are they? I mean, they had the meltdown in Italy with Meloni. She was supposed to be some sort of a fascist. She's turned out to be possibly the most popular European leader at the moment. And they're having another moment.
The media is going to media, I think. And Taylor Swift was probably in there because it drives clicks, which is part of what they're after over here. But look, I think they've got the playbook. Even as he was running in the previous election before this runoff in July, those things came out. It's rinse and repeat. They're trying to frame him in a certain way. They framed him before the election. It'll continue. But again, 55-44. I think the people were buying into it. It is
emphatic. And finally, on Argentinian politics, despite Javier Milei, like Trump before him, being called far right and a fascist and likened to Hitler, he is, like Trump, very much pro-Israel. Here he is just a few days before the election waving the Israeli flag. And that is a bold move in these times before an election. So, yeah, we know where he stands on these issues. Now, Kosha, it seems there is a trend occurring across much of the West, from Finland and Sweden to Argentina, with the right winning elections. And next up, it could be the Netherlands. The Dutch election is on tomorrow, and centre-right candidate Pieter Omtzigt could become the country's next president. What do you think is going to happen in the Netherlands? They have had so much fallout from the attempts to revolutionise their farming. There has been such a backlash to that. Do you think that's going to be a factor?
For sure. I think the farmers become one of those flashpoints that everybody remembers, and they apply it when trying to make sense of the landscape over there. It's a very, very tight race, and I think we're just going to see that more and more, where all these countries in the West, after 50 years of peace and prosperity and just the sort of the leftward lurch that has happened there, you end up with these very divided electorates. And so in the case of the Argentines, it was decisive. But generally speaking, it looks like it'll be a tough call to make. And even if he were to win, or his opponent, you're then governing a country that's very, very divided. But I think that's just what it's going to take. Again, you've got these systemic generational crises, economically, culturally, and everything else. You're going to see more and more mavericks, as they say, or outsiders from the system trying to run and take back control for the people.
This is going to be fascinating. We're going to watch that race as well. And now moving to X. Elon Musk's social media platform X used to be called Twitter. I don't know why he changed the name to X, because every time we say X, we have to say formerly Twitter so people know what we're talking about. Elon, stop renaming things. It's not a strength. But X has faced a massive blow as major advertisers, including the likes of IBM and Apple, are departing the platform, pulling their advertising over claims that their ads have appeared alongside hateful content. Their departure has caused significant financial losses for Musk, and he's responded by suing the far-left outfit Media Matters in what he called a thermonuclear lawsuit. This is significant because it's clear that the campaign against X here, Kosha, is political. If they were really concerned about hate on social media platforms, they would be looking at TikTok. I mean, right now, letters to Osama is trending. Osama bin Laden's letter to America, and thousands of idiot kids are expressing solidarity with a mass murdering terrorist. We've got all sorts of hateful content and threats happening on Meta, on Facebook and Instagram, but it's X that is repeatedly targeted.
Because it is ground zero for what many say is the battle of the century. In the West, is battle for free speech. It's big, it's really messy, it's really tough in terms of the way the power structures, private and public, are aligning against this central tenet. And in a small way, the richest man in the world, who's a self-professed free speech absolutist, overpaid, many would say, for this platform from a business perspective, bought it to kind of make a dent in that battlefield. And so in that sense, if you zoom out, I guess it's not surprising that these kinds of attacks are going to come whenever they have a chance. He sort of stepped in it a little bit by retweeting something or
well, I don't think he did. I think he was responding to a discussion that is a legitimate discussion. It's one we've had with Jewish leaders here about so many who are members of the Jewish community who are active politically on the left, pushing policies that have led us to the position we're in now.
100%. It's a legitimate position.
It's a legitimate discussion to be having.
In the sense that it created an opening for the attack dogs to be let out, which was always going to happen. If not this, it would have been something else. It's a matter of time. And the other problem is the business model is beholden to ad revenue. For all of these social media companies, ad revenue is consolidated with a handful of companies that hold all the power, those big advertisers you cite. And I think he's trying to shift it to be more of a platform for the people, more subscription-driven, which could immunize him against these kinds of things. But it's going to get very dirty.
Absolutely. And I think that this is going to encourage many people who value free speech and value having at least one social media platform where there is an even playing field to subscribe. So if the corporates aren't going to back this, then people with small subscription fees perhaps will. Now, let's go to news closer to home. Let's look at this footage from, I think it's St Kilda Beach here in Melbourne, where the Jewish community was holding a peaceful protest that appears to have triggered this man. Let's have a look.
Because of Israel, because of the IDF, you've destroyed the world. You've destroyed the Middle East. It's not about Judaism. It's Zionism. Retards, you're all so stupid. Yeah, you.
Just ugly, hostile. I'm very sad that he was wearing a Hawthorn Football Club jumper there. It's not good for us. But this was about the most peaceful protest you can have. These people were pushing prams, empty prams, to represent the young children, some babies that have been kidnapped and are still being held hostage in Gaza. And then to cop that, it's just... I mean, what can you do? There's this anti-Israel, anti-Semitic hostility in the community is undeniable right now.
It is, and I think it surprised a lot of people, the scale with which it is and the moments and pockets in which it bubbles up. They're also very thin-skinned, like he just seemed really irritated by the whole thing and, you know, profanities and all of that. And I just don't see an end in sight. I don't know what the...
Destroyed the Middle East. I mean, they're a tiny, tiny country, the only real democracy in the Middle East, the only place where women have equal rights, and this is the unhinged reaction it gets. And talking about unhinged reactions, it's a perfect segue to Lefties Losing It. Okay, let's start Lefties Losing It with the leader of the free world. President Joe Biden had another bizarre exchange with a bewildered child.
And I love your ears. I love them. They're really cool. What's your name?
Catherine.
Catherine, what a beautiful name. That's my mommy's name. Well, nice to see. How old are you, 17? 6.
Jeez. He's not okay, but given his strange sniffing antics, I'm not sure why parents continue to take their children along to his speaking engagements. I mean, what can poor 6-year-old get from that.
Yeah, I know. I feel for her and her parents, and I'm not sure.
Are you 17? He says. Oh my God.
Not a good look for him. He's got bigger problems right now. He's cratering in the polls. There's more rumblings within his base and his party for many reasons, not just limited to that one. So we'll see how this story unfolds.
That's it. Those polls aren't looking good, and if he doesn't turn things around, you do wonder if Gavin or somebody else is going to make their move. Now let's go to Greta Thunberg, whose anti-Israeli activism has seen a response from the IDF, well, sort of. But first, let's look at Greta losing it last week, even getting interrupted during a pro-Palestinian rant at a climate rally.
We have not been listening. The people in power have not been listening.
I come here for a climate demonstration, not a political view.
Calm down. Oh, climate justice on occupied land. No climate justice on occupied land.
Now let's have a look at the Israeli response.
Dear Greta, don't with the IDF, don't with Israel.
If they really want to get serious, they need to unleash the plastic straws. I mean, I'm still not over the fact, I want to talk about lefties losing it, how they somehow fooled us into banning plastic straws, and we're getting our drinks in these plastic cups with plastic lids, but the most crucial thing that needs to be plastic is paper. Kosha, explain it to me.
That is another case in point of the absurdity of these things that happen, and it's virtue signaling, so some people somewhere can feel good that they did something for the environment, and it makes no sense and everybody knows it. She's branching out. I think her use-by date might be coming, and so she's branching out into different issues, and this mashup that we keep talking about of all these fringes, a coalition of fringe issues coming together. This is that on display, I think.
Well, they call it intersectionality, and yeah, she's finding her intersectional. Palestine, though, is a strange one for Greta, but let's see how she goes. Now to Germany, where the police are thoroughly sick of the eco-crazies. Let's look at the sounds this climate cultist makes when police remove him from a blockade. Now to London, where a group of anti-Israeli protesters became agitated when they were told a Zionist was in their midst. Get him, they say, Kosha. That's lovely, isn't it? And still in the UK, our old mate Patrick Christys, a presenter on GB News, found himself in the middle of a pro-Palestinian mob. They weren't too friendly. There seems to be a new tactic where they just say, shame on you, shame on you. We saw them do this outside of McDonald's outlets, just parents carrying their children out, having shame, shame, shame screamed at them. Again, like the climate protesters, and often it can be the same mob, they're not exactly endearing themselves to people who are undecided about this issue.
Because I don't think the goal is persuasion, influencing opinions on your side, and like the legitimate nuances in the debate. The goal is complete takeover, coercion, shaming, all that. And you've seen it again with the BLM protesters, the McDonald's example you cited here, all these issues. It's sort of like showing force as a way to just exert basically what they're their view is, and it's our way or the highway.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see here in Melbourne. The kids are going to be wagging school on Thursday to have a pro-Palestinian march, and there's a huge uproar around that about how that's going to impact the Jewish kids at school, the hostility, the anti-Semitism. So it'll be interesting to see how they behave during that student-led protest. Now, let's check in on some of our youngest and brightest. Seriously, though, these lefties have been failed by their parents and the education system.
Do you guys think Hamas is a terrorist organization?
They are a political organization. Certain countries such as Canada, the UK, the United States recognize them as terrorist organizations, but I think that one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
I live in New York, so do we live on stolen land here too?
Yeah, we do.
It's all a genocide that either was completed or
People look at me.
What's your favorite Palestinian saying? Like from the river to the sea, Palestine would be?
Free.
What would happen to all the Israelis?
They would use their second citizenship to whatever country they immigrated from, and they would go back.
But not everyone in Israel has second citizenship.
But everyone came from somebody that came from some heritage outside of the Middle East.
Like Yemen?
Like Yemen, yes, exactly.
So Jews could go back there?
Ethiopia,
All the Jews could go back to Ethiopia?
Not all of the Jews can go back to one specific place.
Well, Ethiopian Jews.
Wherever they came from.
What about Libyan Jews?
Okay, they can go back to
Libya, right?
They could stay in Palestine if they honor it as Palestinian territory.
Basically, what they're advocating for would see the slaughter of all Jews, but as is often the case with frightfully ignorant people, they end their rant by calling for others to educate themselves.
Do you feel bad about what happened on October 7th?
So I can condemn any act of violence that harms people, and I just would like to acknowledge the fact that context is important.
Right.
And when...
Because they killed a bunch of people, like 1,400 people in one day. It's the largest killing since the Holocaust.
What?
It's the largest killing of Jews. Largest killing of Jews since the Holocaust.
Since the Holocaust, yeah. Okay.
So you still want them to go back to Yemen, Jordan, like Lebanon, Syria?
People aren't educating themselves. They're just following a rhetoric that's been in a family that's completely immoral and inhumane. But nobody wants to educate themselves. And I think if people picked up their phones and
educate yourself. Now, those two were at least pleasant about their genocidal Marxist fantasies. This next lady needs to mind her manners. She starts off by asking, "Are you a Jew?"
Yeah? What's what? Are you a Jew? What are you doing? Hello? Why are you recording?
Hey.
Don't touch me. Hello? Don't touch my... Why are you recording me?
say that again.
Hello?
Say that again.
Hi. What did I say?
What did you say?
What did I say? Oh, hello. Hello? What? Can I not? Why are you touching me, fam? I'll smash your glass into your eyes, bro.
Right.
She's going to smash his glasses into his face, bro. This girl needs to calm down. But instead, we got more talk about Jews and phone smashing.
How? Because I said something about Jews.
Yes.
Because I said I support free Palestine. Because I said I support. Bro, you're lucky I don't smash your phone. You know. Stop recording me. Please stop recording me.
Everyone is recording you.
Can you please stop recording me? Can you please stop recording me? I'm telling you, stop recording me. Look at you, pussy. I'll get off with. Yo, what are you doing?
Now, this next lefty losing it has quite the imagination. Here she explains how the term good morning came about.
So let's talk about where the word good morning originated from. Good morning. All right, so during slavery times, when the women used to mourn about their child being taken away and sold to a different slave master, or if one of the family members did something that resulted into them getting whipped or killed, most of these things used to happen in the evening time. So it was their way to make fun of the black slaves crying that night prior. So they would ask them, "Did you have a good morning? Did you have a good cry?" And they would laugh about it. Y'all know what mourning mean. All they did was take the U off of it, so nobody would think about what it really originated from. It was really a mockery towards black slaves.
Yes, great story there. But despite the desperation of the American left, not everything is about slavery. Indeed, the earliest known use of the word good morning is in the Middle English period. Oxford English Dictionary cites earliest evidence for good morning from around 1450. So we're talking about some time before slavery in the US and before even the transatlantic slave trade began. In fact, there's 1200 is some examples of good morning there. But I just love the commitment to the cause, that we've just got to connect everything to the evils of slavery, even the phrase good morning.
Commitment to the cause, and as you said, quite creative. On some level, you kind of have to admire it, because it looks like she just made the whole thing up out of thin air, put it on TikTok, it went viral, and, you know, why not? The more cynical among us would say, watch the space, because we have seen instances of dictionary.com and Merriam-Webster.com change vernacular around different things. So I'm not saying they're going to do that for this, because it's quite well cited, the etymology, but I would not be surprised if you started to see that happen.
Well, we saw that happen with the OK symbol, where it was as a joke proposed that it represents some sort of white supremacy secret symbol. And then that became mainstreamed when idiots in the media decided that it was actually a real thing, and even the circle game was getting caught up in that. Now, finally, this last lefty's losing it. This one needs to be deported. She's a student at Durham College who is very proud of Hamas and wants them to commit the October 7 attack again and again.
I support Hamas. History is made that day. Very proud of my people. Very, very proud. Would love it if they would do it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. No, they're not terrorists. I support every decision. And you know what? What they did was history. Very proud. History was made that day.
Now, if she's born and bred in the West and she's a failure of multiculturalism, failure of her parents and the education system, if she's not a citizen, she should be sent back to wherever it is she emigrated from. Perhaps they share her genocidal values, but here in the West, the majority still frown upon mass rape, torture, and the deliberate slaughter of innocent civilians. Kosha, I mean, that's disturbing. I mean, you can see kids working their butts off to get to college and to have those sort of views being normalised and to be bold enough to share that on social media proudly just tells you what sort of a climate we've created in academia.
We really have, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you say it's a failure of the culture, of parenting, and the educational system. And it's really interesting because people like that come straight out of central casting. Like, I don't know her specifically, but people like that are the dream of admissions departments, and they like that.
Tick every box.
That's right. And then you see sort of the Frankenstein monster kind of turning on the creators of this cultural trend and the education system and all of that. And it's really interesting. It's sad, but it's really interesting to see that fracturing happening now within that coalition of fringes or intersectionality, and I think we're going to see more of it.
Oh, we're going to see a lot more because the left is going to turn on itself. They do not share too many values other than their shared hate of Western values and conservatives. That's it for Lefties Losing It. Kosha Gator, thank you so much for your time. A compelling new documentary seeks to dispel the mainstream narrative surrounding George Floyd's death in Minneapolis and police officer Derek Chauvin's trial. Led by journalist Liz Collin from Alpha News, the documentary titled The Fall of Minneapolis also delves into the aftermath of the Black Lives Matter riots and the breakdown of law and order. Drawing from Collins' best-selling book, They're Lying, the Media, the Left and the Death of George Floyd, the crowd-funded project has already racked up well over 600,000 views on Rumble alone since Thursday. Here's a teaser of the film.
Murder of George Floyd.
Murder and manslaughter.
The murder of George Floyd.
Peaceful protest overnight in the Twin Cities.
They've been very peaceful. The crowd continues to be peaceful.
8:46, 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
9 minutes and 29 seconds.
Actually, 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
by the way, that particular technique is not authorized by the MPD.
Is this a trained Minneapolis Police Department technique?
It is not.
When I heard that, I really wanted to get up off my chair and yell, bull.
From what I've seen of the videotape, the photograph, and the police training manual, they look pretty identical.
Were you trained in MRT, the maximal restraint technique?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, all the police officers were trained in the MRT.
Joining me now is investigative journalist and the producer of The Fall of Minneapolis, Liz Collin. Liz, why did you make this documentary?
Thank you very much for having me on. You know, we put this together after putting out the book, you know, realizing, of course, not everyone is going to take the time to read a book nowadays, but we really just wanted to put the truth out there once and for all. I was very close to the story and sort of had a front row seat to all of this. My husband was a longtime Minneapolis police officer and the president of the police union at the time, and I was in mainstream media. I left mainstream media over all of this, just tired of pushing this propaganda and also being privy to information that we were not giving to the public to properly inform them of the truth on all of this. And here we are still paying the consequences to this day.
Well, you were personally impacted because of your husband's role. You were an anchor at a CBS affiliate and you had to step down from your role. Just before we talk about this case, tell me about the personal impact, because you had people, mobs turning up at your home.
Yeah, so I was a long-time anchor and reporter at WCCO, a CBS station, for nearly 15 years in all. But I was demoted over all of this. We saw the cancel culture kind of come after myself and my family that summer, as they did basically anyone who had any ties to law enforcement. But clearly, I needed to, lose my job and be killed over all of this. This is what they decided to go with, and and I certainly wasn't the only one. We had several protests at our home that summer, but it really, that force that came out kept so many people quiet and fearful of telling the truth in all of this. And I knew that there were stories there that the media simply ignored. And something, that I kind of just wanted to get out there, because I think once you watch the film and read the book, you realize that this simply did not have to happen the way it did if the truth was told from the beginning.
Well, what are the major misconceptions of that whole saga, the death of George Floyd and the BLM riots that followed?
So much of this was manipulated and kept from the public, and we start that in the film itself with the body camera footage. This is footage that was withheld from the public for nearly 2.5 months. That's never happened before with any sort of critical incident when it comes to Minneapolis police. We were allowed to see this viral Facebook video, and that's all. But in the body camera footage, you clearly hear and see George Floyd talking about how he can't breathe long before Derek Chauvin arrives on scene. You have a black officer who arrests George Floyd that day. And remember, this was all supposed to be about race. That's what we were told. Not only is Alex King involved, but Tu Tao, who's Hmong American. Half of the police officers who respond that day are minority officers. But we weren't allowed to hear about that. We weren't allowed also to see for ourselves how George Floyd was acting, not complying with commands. You have the officers asking, "What are you on? What did you take?" And he again denies again and again that he took anything. And you also have an arrest that happens in 2019 that we're not told about. We're told that Minneapolis police didn't know George Floyd. They had nothing to do with him before. But in fact, he was the subject of an undercover drug investigation in 2019 that we were not allowed to see. And when you play that body camera footage next to what transpired in 2020, it's almost identical.
Now, this week there has been a development on his Derek Chauvin's appeal. The Supreme Court has rejected the appeal, which centred around the denial of the decision to keep the proceedings in Minneapolis, which Derek Chauvin's legal team argued deprived him of his right to a fair trial because of the pre-trial publicity and the threat of violence and riots in the event he was acquitted. Liz, was this decision expected, and what's next for Chauvin?
Yeah, I think sadly it was in the world we live in nowadays. The attorneys they were hopeful that something would happen at the level of the U.S. Supreme Court, but they also knew that this was a pretty long shot after everything that's been allowed to happen. But again, this trial, and we talk about this in the film quite a bit, wasn't really about what jurors were allowed to see, but what was kept from them. There are a couple more legal maneuvers here that they hope to make in the coming weeks and such. So we'll stay tuned for that. I know the other attorneys involved with the other 3 officers have some things going on as well. Certainly they were hopeful for a different result in this, but also not too surprised by what the U.S. Supreme Court decided today.
Well, there's another appeal underway with evidence indicating that Chauvin himself did not cause George Floyd's death. The Associated Press is reporting in a motion filed in federal court, Chauvin said he never would have pled guilty to the charge in 2021 if he'd known about the theories of a Kansas pathologist with whom he began corresponding in February. Chauvin is asking the judge who presided over his trial to throw out his conviction and order a new trial, or at least an evidentiary hearing. Has this been a miscarriage of justice, Liz? There was such an atmosphere, such a climate of retribution. Someone had to pay. We saw the riots throughout the country. In fact, there were riots internationally, BLM-inspired riots. Is what happened to Derek Chauvin, in your opinion, a miscarriage of justice?
Yeah, I've never seen something like this up close as a journalist, where there is so much public documentation and such, which is what we're supposed to go on, that points in one direction, but the press pushed the public in the other direction in such a way that it almost was, you're a conspiracy theorist, or you have to be crazy if you care about the facts here. And that's why I say, even if you don't have a connection to law enforcement, or care about what's happened with skyrocketing crime all across the country, this story really is about the justice system in America and what that says. Alex King speaks to this in the movie itself, talking about how, don't fall for this. Don't fall for this race bait. Don't fall for what the media pushes. We are better than this as people, and we are critical thinkers. So let's not let this happen again in our country. And I think, everybody can kind of decide for themselves after seeing the film, or if they read the book. There's a lot more in the book that you can only kind of boil down into a 90-minute film, but I think this really does speak to where we are, as a country at this point with our justice system, letting the mob rule the day.
Well, yeah, there's issues with the justice system, but there's also issues with the media. And we saw the media lies about the protests being mostly peaceful. We saw the whitewashing of some of the extreme violence and destruction of those riots. And now we're seeing the impact of that entire defund the police agenda, and its impact is being most severe for Black communities. Has the American left acknowledged the destruction this entire defund the police movement has caused? And has the BLM movement also taken a hit in the aftermath?
Yeah, I think there's been quite a bit reported on Black Lives Matter and just what that organization turned into, not helping Black lives at all. That's been well documented as to what's transpired there. But I think we've also come to a point now where people will not admit that they were wrong, and they led people down the wrong path. And I think that's why, I'm grateful for you for giving this documentary and this movie some attention. But you have, certainly a line in the sand. This won't be getting the attention of the mainstream media at all, because they'd have to admit that they were wrong. I mean, I worked at a place that was pushing this very divisive narrative, and it changed the way we shaped and we formed news stories. And I wasn't comfortable with that, and also just painting our men and women who protect and serve each and every day, in such a bad light, portraying them as the bad guys again and again. And I think that damage, sadly, really can't be undone at this point.
Liz Collin, thank you so much for your time, and I urge everyone to check out the documentary for themselves, The Fall of Minneapolis. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Joining me now is royal commentator and host of the To Die For Daily podcast, Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey, just days after Harry and Meghan broke their lengthy silence with a 75th birthday call to King Charles, a new report indicates the couple now want to return to the UK for Christmas. The Sunday Times reports a source close to the couple spilling that after their heartwarming birthday call, they would love to celebrate the festive season back in the UK. The catch, they haven't scored an invitation yet from the monarch. Kinsey, is this the prodigal son moment for Prince Harry, or is this just wishful thinking?
Well, it's certainly wishful thinking, and I don't think that the Sussexes continuing to leak these stories is going to do them any favors. It was the Telegraph, which is incredibly Sussex-friendly, that originally reported that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had that turning point phone call with the king on his birthday. Sources close to the couple, and get your barf bag ready, describing the conversation as warm, and it marked a notable shift in tone. But like clockwork, a palace insider told Page Six here in the States that H&M were total hypocrites for not keeping this phone call private. They said Harry and Meghan fight for privacy when it suits them, and yet the minute Harry gets on the phone with the king, it's in the newspaper. One courtier, Rita, is even suggesting that this phone call never took place. They're citing that the king had a packed birthday schedule. He has a lack of a cell phone, and they're asking where paranoid, Harry and Meghan, privacy paranoid Harry and Meghan, would send a video of Archie and Lily wishing the king a happy birthday when he doesn't have something like an iPhone. Where does that even go? But you're right. The next story to come out of all of this is that the Sussexes would not decline an invitation to spend time with His Majesty, but they would ask for extra protection, saying that without a residence in Britain, that is something that they would require. They would require a formal invitation from the king in Buckingham Palace, so they would be able to stay in one of the royal residences.
Oh, goodness me. You buried the lead there. King Charles doesn't have a cell phone? How can that be? How can anybody not... Does anybody in the UK not have a cell phone? Is he the only person in the whole of the country? That's extraordinary in itself. But you're so right. They are just chronic leakers. They complain about the media more than anybody, blame the media for fleeing the country and their duty. But nobody leaks like the Sussexes. And Kinsey, it seems they've hit an identity crisis since leaving the royal family, as one of their main sources of income, which is airing the royal family's dirty laundry, is becoming scarce. Omid Scobie, the Sussexes' unofficial spokesperson and author of the upcoming book Endgame, revealed that he spoke with people within the couple's orbit who admit things haven't quite gone to plan, really. And Scobie told People magazine the Duke and Duchess of Sussex really need to establish what their purpose is. What is their purpose, Kinsey? That is a good question.
Yeah, we need a magic 8-ball, Rita. But I think that these two stories go hand in hand. The idea that Harry and Meghan want to spend Christmas with the royal family. And then we have Omid Scobie saying that Harry and Meghan really have no value outside of the British royal family. What is their purpose? What is, when it comes at the end of the day, what are they trying to accomplish to make the world a better place? Because they told us when they stepped down as senior members of the royal family that they were going to live a life of service. And so far, all of we've seen of them is verbal vomiting on reality television shows and podcasts. So, it's interesting to see Omid say this, because it certainly is not a positive reflection on the couple. And, to see Meghan Markle at Beyonce concerts, to see Meghan Markle on Los Angeles red carpets without something to promote or without something of value to say, to promote something vague, oh, we've got good things coming. Their entire brand looks so frivolous at this point. And it really does. It's like, what are you guys doing? What are you doing?
Oh, you're so right. Frivolous is, I think, painting it in a too positive a light. Vacuous is what I would go with. That they really are just... they're not even good at airing the dirty laundry. They keep saying things that are verifiably untrue, so they get debunked very quickly. And that documentary, was it 6 parts? That was so exceedingly boring. Now, moving away from the royals.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say not nominated for anything. Yeah, not nominated for any big Hollywood awards, which would have justified it. It would have justified everything if they would have been nominated for an Emmy. Reports here in the States are that Prince Harry is little disappointed that he wasn't nominated for a Grammy for his narration of the book Spare. They're producing all of this content, and the industry's not even acknowledging it. So that's got to be humiliating to them.
Oh, I'm shocked that there's not some sort of an award for excessive usage of the word todger in a audiobook, but, you know, maybe down the track. Now, let's move away from the royals. This story is leading page 6 on all the gossip sites today. In a Father's Day post in 2020 on a private account, Pax Jolie Pitt, the son of actors Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, slammed his estranged father as a world-class a-hole, accusing him of being abusive. This story has broken today, Kinsey, 3 years later. Pax wrote, "Happy Father's Day to this world-class a-hole. You time and time again prove yourself to be a terrible and despicable person." He also reportedly wrote, "You have no consideration or empathy towards your 4 youngest children who tremble in fear when in your presence." Oh my gosh, this is quite a post. It's taken 3 years for the story to break, Kinsey. What do you think the fallout from this will be?
Well, you know, without getting sued, I think this has, it's my personal opinion, allegedly, that it has Angelina Jolie's fingerprints all over it. I mean, she's worked really hard over the last few years to tell the world that, you know, Brad Pitt was a monster within their marriage. They have had vicious court battles. So to have this leak suspiciously 3 years later, I mean, it's a little odd. But the actor, he hasn't been photographed with any of his children since 2016. And that's, I think, when they filed for divorce following this highly publicized incident on a plane where Pax and Brad Pitt really went head to head. However, the FBI investigated Pitt, and the alleged child abuse, they decided not to pursue that as criminal charges. So, you know, it just seems strange. Brad Pitt's had a lot of positive press lately because he's got a beautiful new girlfriend. And maybe Angelina Jolie is saying, "Hi, I'd like to remind the world that this guy isn't as great as we might think he is."
Oh, it's sad if he's estranged from all his children, since if it hasn't been photographed with them. I don't know what the situation is there. Kinsey Schofield, we always rely on you for the latest. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Joining me now is comedian and host of Prime Time with Alex Stein on Blaze TV, the incorrigible Texan himself, Alex Stein. Alex, let's talk about some serious stuff. We've got the newly released footage from January 26 showing Matthew Perna. In this footage, Perna, you can see him in the red sweatshirt, walking calmly through the Capitol alongside protesters and police officers. Some of the police officers are just chatting amongst themselves. They're so relaxed. Now, Perna initially pled guilty, expecting a year's prison sentence. However, after his plea, the Department of Justice revealed plans to pursue a terrorism enhancement charge, which would have driven up his sentence to up to 9 years in federal prison. And then at the time of Perna's death, he did tragically take his own life. His family mentioned he couldn't take another day after learning of the sentencing enhancement in his case. He's not alone here, Alex. There have been multiple suicides. Will there be any accountability for authorities who have weaponised the US justice system?
Well, you just said it best. This is a weaponization of our entire, Department of Justice, whether it's FBI, CIA, NSA. They've all been weaponized against the most passionate American citizens. And the real problem, I really feel bad for Matthew Perna. I met his aunt. She's a great woman, the stuff that their family has gone through. But what's really bad is the fact that they've been taking such a long time to release this footage, because we know, Rita, that they're going to expose that there was agent provocateurs, or that the police were in on some of this. Even AOC said that the police, the Capitol Police, let the rioters in. So it's very weird that they've been so, close-fisted about what really happened on January 6th.
Well, yet they had a whole commission, and yet they haven't released these tapes. So why hasn't it taken so long for these tapes to be released, given the focus on this particular day? They were calling it an insurrection for years.
Well, the worst part about it is they try to say it's worse than 9/11, yet they were able to reconvene in about 3 hours and certify the election. So obviously it was not as bad as 9/11. And like I said, there's been so many clips now where it looks very odd, where there'll be a January 6th rioter and then the cops are taking off his handcuffs, and that, they're being very friendly to each other. So, RIP to Matthew Perna. It looked like he was walking right next to cops. But the worst part about this is that there were agent provocateurs that were there in order to make it look worse than it really was, because all of those people that walked in that building cared about America. And Tucker Carlson said it best. At least these people that had some grievances, they went to the Capitol, to the right place, instead of burning down an AutoZone or a Gucci store like in the Summer of Love. These people went to Washington, D.C. to talk to their elected officials and try to figure out what really happened. So it's really sad that they're weaponized against the people that love the country the most, Rita.
Absolutely. And those who did riot, those who did destroy property or attack any individuals, then, prosecute them. But after you have that Summer of Love, as you called it, and riots across the country, the violence, there were dozens of people killed, and yet this one particular riot is held up as some sort of a insurrection that's going to destroy democracy. That was just one of the biggest moments of gaslighting of the American public I think we've seen. And we're learning now that the FBI decided to drop a sting operation on a child pornographer in Virginia who was discussing abusing a 9-year-old boy, instead choosing to prioritise prosecuting those involved in the January 6th riot, even those who didn't riot. Now, years later, the same child pornographer was found in Alaska engaging in sexual acts with a 10-year-old boy. This is according to allegations made in court documents. Alex, this is just incredible that the FBI would prioritise its anti-Trump vendetta over catching an alleged pedophile.
Well, Rita, nothing is worse than child sexual abuse. Literally, that is worse than murder, in my opinion. And I'm not even trying to make light of it, but during this January 6th event, my favorite Congresswoman, AOC, she complained that people were going to try to rape her and that she was scared. And now I'm kind of sympathetic, because they weren't stopping rapists. They were. So maybe she had a point. Maybe she knew that the FBI was not actually trying to, protect and serve American citizens. So, no, this is a serious issue, that they care more about letting a pedophile go and arresting a MAGA grandma for walking through the Capitol with an American flag. So it just shows you that our entire, police force is corrupt.
Now, we've got to talk about some less serious content, as we always do with you, Alex. And there's reports I'm hearing, disturbing reports. Oh, my favourite.
Sky Bear.
What's he called?
Your favourite.
Goodness.
Sky Bear. He loves you, Rita. Every time you're on.
That's a handsome animal. Handsome animal.
He's overweight. I wish
that
he eats too much Fancy Feast.
Too much Fancy Feast. You've got him on the good stuff. That's why I know you love him.
The primo stuff.
I don't know. The primo, that's it. I don't know if the new woman in your life is a fan of cats, because Tiffany Gomez, who's also known as the TMFINR, that MFR is not real lady, you have allegedly proposed to her after a romantic meal. I think we might even have some footage of this. Let's have a look.
Hold on.
Tiffany, after this moment together, after the feelings that you felt from that and I felt from that, I wanted to ask you if you would take my hand in marriage. This is a real ring for the people. We just shared that moment, that spaghetti, and I do have HIV. I'm HIV positive, but other than that...
This is so aggressive.
I know, but you can say yes, and then we can spend our lives together.
How about we put it on the right hand?
No, I think the correct hand for the marriage.
The right one's good.
Jimmy, is Hank watching this? Will you tweet this at Hank?
Also, you gotta realize, I have small fingers. That's gonna be too big.
Well, we're gonna get it directly to Hank.
And it's a heart?
Yes, it's the most beautiful thing because it's I love. This is for love. And then you can keep this.
And I have a cowboy hat.
Yeah, because I wear a cowboy hat
sometimes. I can match you.
Look at this. Guys, this is what love is.
Oh, wow.
I know, extremely close.
I don't even know where to start. Are you now happily engaged, and does AOC know about this?
Well, AOC better not find out. I know that clip has a few million hits. Do not let her see. And honestly, Rita, I had to get mad at Tiffany because she kind of came for you in the comment section, all because you didn't say that MFR is not real. You didn't have the right acronym. So I told her, hey, you got to press the brakes. Rita is a queen in Australia, and she's a very good friend of mine. So already all the ladies in my life, Rita, including you, are fighting. This is the love triangle that I did not expect. So thank you for your support. Remember, I always have your back even more than Tiffany. I love Tiffany, Rita, but I love you even more.
Thank you. Oh, it's not even just a triangle, it's a love square at the moment, if we're including AOC in this disaster. Now, I've heard Tiffany's explanation for the meltdown, that infamous footage that I think we'll remember for many years to come. It doesn't make any sense, Alex. It just doesn't make sense. What she said on the plane, what she said afterwards at the airport, there's so much footage of the freak out. And it doesn't really match up with her explanation of what the conflict was about. I mean, what really happened on that American Airlines flight?
Well, she did reveal something on the show. Tiffany revealed that she is banned from American Airlines, and that she also said that she was at the Admiral's Lounge before. And anybody that knows about the Admiral's Lounge, it's free drinks. So I think that she was overserved. Flying this day and age, you fly, it's very stressful. The flight attendants are rude. Everybody's rude now. It's just not luxurious to travel anymore. She was flying in coach. I think she tries to, portray herself as a wealthy woman. So
she's not a coach girl.
Yeah, that's not her vibe. But regardless of that, I fly coach. I love coach. But my point is, she had a meltdown because of alcohol. And we've all had public freakouts. She probably didn't expect to go viral. But a lot of people say that's not the real Tiffany Gomez. It is. I looked at her ID. She didn't want me to post her ID, but it is Tiffany Gomez. And I mean, I don't know. People do say she looks different, though. So the conspiracy theorists, I can't really argue with her. She does look a little different, but that is Tiffany Gomez, as her ID says. And she is the one that's banned from American Airlines from all the information that I gathered.
I do want to see her back in that outfit, same hair, same amount of makeup. Then I'll be convinced that's the same person. I don't want to start any conspiracy theories, but I've been in that same lounge and they do free pour. So you have one drink there, you've had about 6. So yeah, perhaps that's the explanation, the very simple explanation. Alex Stein, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Rita.